and they'll just any event, you know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong. I know people call it niching down, but there's nothing wrong with niching in. Like you were just saying, being very clear. Oh, but what if I miss money? You're missing money now because you're generic and
That's
nobody
that
cares.
What do Shaq, Destiny's Child, and your next launch have in common? They all prove that well executed events can do more than entertain, they can transform brands. Stephanie D. McKenzie shares how you can use event marketing to build influence, grow your business, and leave a lasting legacy. Thank you so very much for being a guest today, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So, share a little bit about yourself and how did you actually get into event marketing or the event industry?
I have to tell you, it was not a well laid plan, although many things in my life are not well laid plans when it comes to, great opportunities. What happened was I moved to Houston. My background is absolutely marketing and brand, brand as we know it now, but at that point it was just marketing. And I had a couple of friends, one of which that worked with Music World Music locally, and that was kind of my inroad into events and the Destiny's Child of it all. I mean, and into that, I had done some things, medium scale events, talent shows, with celebrity judges and all that stuff, way before American Idol became a thing. But that's how we kind of, we came together as a three pack basically. And that was my introduction into the world of real celebrity events.
Well, I love the fact that you said that it's like a three pack. Like often we can find that when people enter into events, they're trying to do all of the things on their own and not understand the importance of aligning themselves with different components inside of executing a well thought out event. And I would love to ask you a question on that. But before I dig into that, I just want to say a comment for anyone that's listening to this. I want for you to listen to this even if you're thinking about, I want to get into corporate events, I want to get into organizing fundraisers, I want to get into production, or even if you say, I still want to stay in weddings and special events, take what you hear today and think about how do you apply what she is sharing so that you're able to level up your business. There's a lot of growth opportunity in the event industry when it comes to corporate events, when it comes to experiential. They're expecting experiential to be a multi-billion dollar industry in the next 10 years. So listen to what she's going to share and think about how do I, or if I want to get a cut of what they're expecting, how do I apply what she's going to be sharing? So I wanted to share that before we really dig into this, because when you said like a cluster, what do you mean by a cluster for anyone that doesn't understand that?
Well, for us, we had three different skill sets. So there was the PR skill set, the marketing skill set, and then the third person actually worked with Music World in promotions. And so, and that has really been a recurring theme. It's very rare for me to pull off, especially large scale events like that. And that was actually, I dare say that was kind of a medium scale event, but just because you have, the A-list piece involved. But it's rare that I pull off anything, business, event, et cetera, without having other people at play, in my day-to-day operations. I have an operations manager in some of the other programs that I've created. I create teams. And so I think it's really important to understand that there's no, as I call it, hustle badge of honor,
Yeah.
where I wore all the hats and I did all the things and, I even stepped in and made some food. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for failure because as amazing as you are, anybody listening to this, your host, as amazing as you are, you can't do everything well. And when it comes to curating, especially events, it's important that everything is curated well because you're creating an environment for others to come into and have the experience you want them to have. And it's just really hard for you to do that single handedly.
I agree. And it's like, it's not a badge of honor to be like Superwoman or Superman. Like, I think when you're doing this type of stuff, because it's like, one, it's stressful. So eventually burnout or something like that happens. So that can also just cause a bad impression of your brand. So it's better to think about how you can be an asset. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I would love to get into bigger productions, should they start to think about how do I leverage myself to be a part of a team? Or should they think about, should I go and tackle all this on my own to create my own team? I would love to hear what your perspective is on that.
Honestly, it really depends on your resources. But I will tell anyone, I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make is not looking for team members who have already achieved what they're supposed to be doing for you. And what do I mean by that? I mean, as easy as it might be to put your hand on a production intern, right? Super easy. Run down to your local community college, university. Hey, I do events and I need an intern. Here they come. Yeah, but see, they don't have the level of experience. So if you don't have the patience or the inclination to want to teach or to hold hands, and that doesn't mean there aren't some rock star students, it's just they haven't operated at that level. It might be more beneficial to put out a cry for help and find somebody who's already in the space, who's already doing the thing, and they are ready to expand as well. And
Mhm.
then you all come together, you have the meeting of the minds, and you figure out who does what well, and do we need somebody else? And then you can amass your team that way. And if after that you decide you want to get interns or people that you want to kind of apprentice you all, then great. But I think if you're really trying to expand and you're serious about this and you've been in this industry for a while, any industry, right? If you've been in the industry for a while, you don't want to slow yourself down unless you've made a conscious commitment to do just that.
Yeah. And then what I hear from your share, it all comes down to teamwork. And what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about teamwork when we get into like event production side of the realm of any event industry?
Biggest misconception, I would almost say, is that we can't have overlap in
Mm,
our skill sets, and that in that overlap we may not find that we can't find the sweet spot of working together. Let me give you an example. So we can fast forward to All Star 2006. And that's when we did the event with Shaquille O'Neal. And the only reason why we did an event with Shaquille O'Neal is because I looked at the market. The market said All Stars coming. I looked at our capabilities. I said, you might want to do an event or something. Okay, who do you do an event with? I'm a huge proponent of low hanging fruit.
mm,
And I had a friend whose brother was a part of a management company called Deja 34, which was, a part of Shaquille O'Neal's empire, if you will. And that's how that came to be. It wasn't because I was just so great that they called and they said, so will you create this event for us? No, I looked at the market and I seized the opportunity. And so in that, how that, and in bringing that to pass, right, there was myself who was handling the marketing for real, like the graphic design. I was overseeing art direction. I was making sure that we had all the materials, but I was also a part of event design. And so I had a friend who was an amazing event coordinator, but she said, what do you want this event to be like? And my explicit instructions to her was, I want this to be the only event they still talk about in All Star 2007. And she said, okay. But her being the event designer and the coordinator and the event director didn't absolve me from having input.
yeah,
In fact, we have to work together. It's not like, okay, you go over there and do marketing, you go over there and do this, and then
yeah,
we'll meet up at the event. No, we had to have conversations. And it's not that I don't know how to design an event or coordinate an event, but that's not the area that I was bringing the expertise in.
yeah,
So I think that's a common misconception because I think sometimes, professionals can get territorial. And if someone says, well, what about this? Well, I'm this. And it's like, yeah. But if we're going to work together, there has to be a level of communication that is, I don't want to say even authentic, that is mature and
yeah.
evolved enough for me to say to you, hey, Amy or Amanda or Rachel or whomever's on this team, have you considered this? Not because I'm trying to step on your toes, but because I want us to all literally cross this finish line together.
I think that that's such a perfect example. And honestly, I feel like some people, even when they hear this, you probably named some positions and roles that they weren't even aware of. Because often I find, especially at certain levels of businesses, the event organizer is doing all of those things and then they're hiring all the vendors, compared to understanding that you probably need to hire someone that is essentially focused on the marketing and the graphics and things of that nature. But then you need to have someone that has a design element to help with putting that vision together. And then you still have that organizer. Like there needs to be clarity, because they always say more hands equals lighter work and a lighter load, compared to straining everyone
Mm-hmm.
else out. And if someone's listening and you're thinking to yourself, like, it always has to be about you. The thing is that you may be robbing yourself of really great, impactful opportunities and events because you're like smothering and suffocating it. And was that something it took you some time to actually grow in, or was it something that just naturally came to you to, like, I want to be a part of a team that's doing some really, like, I always say, like, I want to be a part of a group of people that's doing some really dope things. It does not have to be about me. I just want
Yeah.
to be a part of something that's amazing. How was that in your own personal journey?
I think I've always played well with others who play well.
Mm,
I don't play well with everybody. I play well with others that play well. And, for me, it was, dare I say, a kindred spirit type of thing. Like, hey, I want to do this. I know you have this level of expertise. It supersedes my own. This is what I can bring to this. This is what you can bring to this. Do you want to do this? And we were like, yeah, I think we can make this happen. And we did, we absolutely did. But I like teams. I don't like operating in a vacuum. I
yeah.
also feel that in that team, it's imperative that people feel valued. No matter what they're doing, it's imperative that people feel valued. And, I think that goes for any business, not just events business, making people feel valued, making sure that their gifts and talents are on display. That when you're talking about who brought this to the market, that you don't forget people, don't forget their names, you know, don't forget their names. And that's a little thing, but a big thing. But making sure that we all made this happen. And if there's other doors that can open because of it, it might not be my door. It might be your door. And I'm excited to watch you walk through it because there's more than enough for everybody. I live a life with an abundant mindset. So I am not upset if because of what we did, somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I really liked how you handled that." I'm going to be like, "Bravo. Let's go." That's awesome.
I think that that's great, because I feel that we in the, let's say in the solopreneur or the entrepreneur space, we don't hear, in my opinion, enough about being leaders and being the leader that actually creates a space where people are feeling valued, or creating a space where people want to even work with you and in a collaborative space, and is something that we have to lean more into. And the reality of events as a whole is that in order to really have the success that you're desiring, it doesn't matter if you wanted to do these, 6-figure wedding installs, you have to be a good leader, especially to have the longevity that you're wanting to have. And the thing that really excites me about this conversation is with event marketing is that you're starting to find this to be on all sides of scales. So you can have small scales where you might have a coach that is looking to organize an event for or a retreat or a resort, because I want to make sure people
Mhm.
understand, where does event marketing come into place. We're not only talking about these grandstand productions. Often I am speaking to people that are like, I want to get into corporate events, or I want to do brand activations, because brand activations are becoming a very, very big thing for corporations as well as local businesses that are trying to engage their community. So when we're thinking about event marketing, to me, naturally, some businesses that make sense to align yourselves with, and I would love to hear your input too about this, are probably going to be individuals that do have marketing agencies, because marketing agencies can be a great alignment when it comes to that. Like, I know someone, her specialty is doing digital marketing and things of that nature. So she's already in conversations with her corporate clients. So if there's ever an opportunity that they may need someone that can do events, I already have that rapport. So it may also be, as you're networking with people, don't just go for the jugular. Like, it's going to be a relationship building. So thinking to yourself, how do I start aligning myself with individuals that have marketing agencies, PR agencies? That's something you had teased on. What would be some other businesses that you think, if someone specializes maybe in event design or event organizing, that would make sense for them to network or align themselves with?
Well, I'll tell you, what I really love about event marketing in general is that it brings, in theory, it brings the targeted consumer, the potential buyer, even the current buyer, into a space where they are solely focused on what you put in front of them. And so it's a beautiful way, a very covert operation, if you will, to drown out the noise. I think that for people who are good at events, and I don't mean just picking a venue and ordering food. I mean, when you're good at strategically looking at, okay, when the individuals enter, we're going to have the step and repeat, and then we're going to bring them in over here to this kiosk where they can enter their information. If you're really good at being strategic about how you move people through a space, then individuals who need that, yes, coaches, definitely, speakers, definitely, teaming up with marketing agencies, especially if they're boutique or if they claim to be boutique or bespoke brands, like actual products. Because sometimes, hey, they've got product, they need to move product. Maybe this is when we, go into like a monthly soiree at your office. Real estate. Realtor oftentimes can get very caught up in the, I got to sell something today. But one of the amazing ways to sell is to get people in your space, let them learn about what you have to offer, and then evangelize your brand, evangelize your company, evangelize your offers. And I think that, and then the other thing that leads me to educational companies, because I am a huge proponent for learning and thought leadership. That's how we leverage brands in that way. Like, we look at the learning, we look at the possibility of thought leadership. Both of those require learning experiences. And I would almost say, don't just limit yourself to things on site. There's plenty of platforms, spatial chat and some others that allow you to do digital events with a in-person feel. Leverage those, become amazing at those, and maybe even reach out to those companies, because they may need people to demonstrate how this could actually work. So the opportunities are wide open. But I mean, if you only want to just pick a venue and pick out food, it may leave some things to be desired, which means you may now need to get with someone who can strategically move people through a room and allow the client to have the metrics and the measurements that they desire.
I love that how you just explained that, because it is, I was going to ask about the strategy, but the great thing about what you shared was that knowing, and I think this is something that's important for all business owners, but definitely those of us in events, is that you have to know the audience. And if that's not a skill set you're strong at, you have to grow into it, especially if you're wanting to go into corporate events. A little bit about, I do events for residential communities. And the thing is there's a lot of psychology in that. Like, you can have 5 communities trying to celebrate Mother's Day, and they're all going to be different depending on the city, state, location, and the demographic that is actually in that building. But if I never took the time to learn those minutiae of it, if I'm trying to fit one concept on all 5, what's going to happen is that 4 of them are going to be duds and one is going to be a hit. And if you're not strong in it, it's definitely going to be important for you to either align yourself with a company that specializes or have that skill set, or taking the time to actually learn. And this is important even for those of you that have, let's say, wedding businesses. You'd be surprised how many people I speak to, and I'm like, who's your audience? Well, I do events. And I'm like, yeah, but no, like, why? Like, what's going to make you you? What's the type of person you're really trying to attract? Because that also helps you with knowing what vendors you need to align yourself with. Because if not, you can have someone that really specializes maybe in um basic bar setups. It might be nice, but when it comes to maybe something that's more elevated, where there's signature drinks and stuff like that, that might not be their strong suit for 100 person crowds. They may be able to execute it with 15, 20, but they don't have the strong suit of larger crowds. And as event organizers, you have to know what are the strengths of each and every one of your vendors. But I think also it's important to know if this is the direction you want to start heading into when it comes into corporate, when it comes to event organizing, what are the type of vendors that you should even be aligning yourself with so that when that opportunity comes, you already have someone in your back pocket. Is that something that you would agree with?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that serves event coordinators, directors, now there's so many titles floating around, right?
Yeah.
Activation experts, whatever it is. The thing that serves you well in curating the event experience is the same thing that serves, because again, for me, it's a marketing event. So it's about bringing that buyer and that seller together. I can't do that if I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And so the psychographics and the demographics are the things that will serve you well. It's going to dictate, like you were saying, how you move, what you do, what makes sense, what fonts are we using, what colors are we using, what type of experiences are we going to bring in. And then when we're looking at what they value, well, that may dictate what kind of speaker we have or what
Yeah.
kind of activities we have. And so if you skip over that part, because I know a lot of people they don't want to do the non-glamorous part. They're like, let's
Yeah.
fast forward to the event. I'm like, let's fast forward to the piece of paper. Let's
Yeah.
let's sit down with some paper, okay, a little pen, and maybe a little bit of chat GPT. No shade, love chat. We call her Kathy in the office. Let's talk about psychographically and demographically who are we attempting to reach, because if you have to buy media or if you need to reach out to media, you'll need to know which media.
Yes.
There's such when it comes to the creative arts, so to speak, there's such a scientific application that comes with that. There's such a strategic application that comes with that. And sometimes people get dissuaded by that. They're like, no, I just want to do the thing. Okay, we can't do the thing until we know what the thing is. And you might find that there's a lot of people that are doing events, but they're doing any event. One minute it's bounce houses, the next minute it's, biker shows. They're basically just like pandering, like Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have another event? And they'll just
Yeah.
any event. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong. I know people call it niching down, but there's nothing wrong with niching in. Like you
Mhm.
were just saying, being very clear. Oh, but what if I miss money? You're missing money now because you're generic and nobody.
Do you ever feel like you are always reinventing the wheel inside of your event business? What if you had workflows to help with improving your client experience and how you're executing your services? There is a stress-free way to run your business, and I have a free resource to help you with navigating how to go about creating that inside of your business. That's why I have created a free training that's intended to help event business, industry business owners with being able to streamline how they're doing their services so that you are no longer wasting time, potentially making mistakes, or losing clients. This quick training will walk you through how to go about creating your process. It also includes some free printouts and worksheets to help you with being able to map out your plan. Don't let your back office hold you back anymore, and take the time to download the free resource that's in the description today. Part, that part is so, I'm sorry to cut you off because that part right there, because here's the thing with what I do is so hyper niche, but that's what it has allowed for people to know what to recommend me for and has allowed for my business to grow and scale. If I remember the beginning of starting my event journey, I remember I did 2 private events and I was like, that is not my ministry and I don't choose that for myself. I rather like I love a beautiful wedding. Like I look on Instagram and I'm like, double tap, that is phenomenal. I love it. I don't.
Mhm.
I don't choose that for myself. But could you imagine that in the beginning, if I was like, I'm still going to try to do this, and this, and I would have been doing something I did not enjoy doing just because it was an opportunity? Like, you have to be clear. And
Yes.
what happens is that it just divides your energy to even move forward. Because when you have that clarity, if you're like, I want to help people with coaches that specifically do retreats that are abroad, and I'm going to align with someone that does travel, and then I'm going to have this, that, and other. Like, think about, you can actually pull a list. You can do market research for people that may have been, that can be a good fit based off of their following, based off of the audience that they serve, depending if this person ever expresses that they go and travel. You can put together a super focused pitch deck and master how do you get high ticket value business coaches to help, hire you to do full on production, that you may even have an alignment with someone that does event marketing or they do branding and things like that. And so now you can put a whole done for you package together. And that is so crystal clear compared to having to go into all of these other directions. So I appreciate you even saying that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and all of that makes total sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. And here's the bonus round, right? Here's the cheat code. If you meet people, let's say you love to do that medium scale event. Well, if you meet somebody and they say, "Yeah, I was hoping to find somebody to do my kid's birthday party." Well, then you have a network of people, and then you can just say, "Hey, I've got a lead for you, and this is my referral fee, or what are your referral fees?" And that way, listen, you're still getting in on the opportunity. You're just not doing anything outside of what you really want to do. And I get it. Sometimes it happens over here. You take on a client, maybe the scope starts to creep and leak, and you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it is. But if you're doing that on a consistent basis, to me, it's signifying that you're not clear. And when you're not clear, your clients are going to mirror that energy. And so they're
Yeah.
going to come in unclear. And you're like, oh my God, they don't know what they want. Neither do you. That's how we got here.
And now we're
A little
both
clarity goes a long
frustrated.
way.
And now we're both frustrated and disgusted.
Exactly. Just mad, just wilding out, just crashing out on social. I don't know. I just want to burn it all down. I'm like, no, you don't.
So I love the fact that you mentioned about just understanding some of the basics of marketing. Would you recommend for someone, even if they don't necessarily want to do the marketing component, would you recommend if someone wants to go now into this vein to possibly take a course, be it collegiate or maybe Udemy or something like that, to explore marketing just so they can have more of a base front? Because let's be honest, some people that may have only been doing special events, that side probably hasn't been cultivated a ton to understand, how do I actively start to go into this new vein? Would you recommend that for them?
It depends. If they feel like they want to learn something new and just have that cursory knowledge, okay, great. If they don't, okay, great. But I think the thing that's most important is that there is an acknowledgement that it matters, and that you just don't throw your head into a hole, and hide from it, but it matters. And so it's just a matter of what you want to do with that information. And you can't be glib to the fact that if someone's giving you $100,000 budget to get people in a room, that they weren't just doing that for their health. They have to answer to somebody who allocated that. I don't care if they're multi-million, dare I say, almost billion-dollar company. If they're giving you money to put people into a space, in a room, in an office, in a, I don't know, whatever, there's going to come a time when that person has to answer for that. And so you, as an event person, need to understand that that's going to happen. And if you want repeat business, if you want that organization to come back to you, then understanding that not only do the metrics matter, but because the metrics matter, the marketing matters, could be the best thing that ever happened to you, even if you're not the one to do it. If you just say, you know what, I understand it matters. Let me team up with somebody that I can run things through to make sure that I'm not just giving them this creative flex.
Yeah.
People need outcomes, they need results. This is the reality, you know?
Yes, I love that you brought that up too, because I was going to actually start to dabble into that conversation, because metrics and understanding what a client's result is for a specific event is should also be linked to the strategy that you're coming up with, and understanding honestly, any and every event should have a ROI. And that, for anyone that's not heard, return on investment, regardless if we're doing a 3-year-old birthday party, or we're doing a block party for an association, or we're doing a brand launch and activation. All of them have a return on investment. They're giving you money for an outcome or a result. For you, you've been mostly on the event organizer, event marketing side. What are some common ROIs that you find that people are desiring? And what are some ways that you recommend for people to actually keep track of that kind of data?
Absolutely. I mean, it really depends on the event. On the celebrity side, sometimes it's just a matter of getting certain people in a room, right? Let's go small scale event. It could be touch points with a QR code. It could be individuals in front of a particular brand wall. It could be hashtags and tweets, and do we still say tweets? Whatever. Hashtags and in social, whatever it is. I'm like,
Yeah.
X's? Do we call them X's? Are they no longer tweets? I don't know.
Or
So
threads.
exactly. So, it could, but see, those are the things that once you have the conversation, you can figure out how to build that in. So, case in point, we had a client did virtual event, and as their engagement director, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of we had a major donation for this event to come off, and so I'm like, okay, we need to put their logo on everything. Let's make sure that we're saying their name. Let's make sure that we're thanking them publicly. And then, what else can we do? What else can we put their name on? Oh, and of course, we have all these people in the room who could be funders. Great. Let's put QR codes on all of the slides. Because I don't want somebody sitting at their computer saying, wow, I love what they do. I'd love to support. And then I'm giving them a web address that they're going to have to remember. I need to seize that moment in time. Take out your
Yes.
phone, scan the QR code, drop some coin. Thanks. We appreciate you
Yeah.
so much. But those are the things, and she didn't ask me for that. Those are the things. That's how I looked at the situation and said, what can we organically get from this? And so somebody might tell you on the corporate side, they may say, hey, we want 200 we want 200 attendees, and maybe 30% enroll in this, or they buy this, or they take photos with this, or they tweet this, or they Instagram this. It really just depends what's the function and form of the event overall.
Yeah, even with my corporate clients, whenever I have the opportunity to speak to platforms, I always say to them, because the thing is that the people that usually hire me, they don't get into what they do because they want to organize events. Actually, it's the least of what they want to do. For some of them, they just see that they're checking a box off. And so I can tell that that's their behavior. And I've told them, when I've spoken to some, I'm like, the reality is that people can sense that when you give lackluster effort. And if you're thinking that doing this is going to build a sense of community or client retention, just because people took all of the free items, or your bar ran out, or the food ran out, or people have took
Mhm.
everything, that is not your goal. Like, that is not a metrics for you. I'm like, because I will take your food and eat everything, not me personally, but people will do that, and they still will hate living here, and they will move. I was like, so what are you going to do
Absolutely.
to be able to ensure that you're not just giving people these opportunities, but you're actually doing activities that will produce the results which you're looking for, which is either, everyone has different reasons. If they're trying to get more people to move in, maybe it might be more visibility. Like, if you're trying to get more visibility, but you don't have a photo wall, you don't have any contests going on, you don't have any hashtag, heck, you're not even sharing any content. So where is the
Right.
Where's the visibility? If the goal is visibility, why aren't we hiring someone or getting someone on the team to create that content? But if you don't know those dynamics of events, this is why I love when you said about the non-sexy, is because that's something I really coin on, this podcast as well as on my YouTube, is that in the event space, we want to focus on the beautiful side and the event day, but
Hmm.
we're not thinking about all
Yeah.
the steps and all of the components that actually are a part of the process between when someone decides to hire you to that event day, so that you're helping that client, regardless of whatever they're needing you for, that they're getting the result that they desire. So it's probably even helpful for you to ensure on the onboarding process that you even have clarity on what their true goal. So for those of you that are just wanting to jump into this, and heck, I don't care what kind of event, to be honest, ask them, what is your vision for this?
Hmm.
Why is that important? What would
Hmm.
be something, other questions I guess you think would be helpful for them to ask, just so that they're really setting up a strong foundation to even start the planning process?
Absolutely. And just that's like, what's crazy is that you're being held to the standard, even if it's not communicated.
Yes.
And so, like you said, being proactive, like every time we did an event, be it large scale, small scale, celebrity, non celebrity, my event director would say, what do you want people to experience with this event? What do you want them to leave with? What do you want them to do? And I have, and she and I, we don't work together anymore. She's in a whole different city, and, the seasons change, right? But I have taken and adopted that mindset. And like you said, when you sit down with a client, because everything that we've done hasn't always been about a quote unquote client, right? But when you sit down with that client, asking the questions that make you look like you actually know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, oh, what are your colors? And no, what do you want from this event?
Yeah.
How will you deem this event a success? How will you deem this event a failure? Because you want to know that too, right? Because if you're like, oh, we got 200 people in the room, well, we wanted 400. Womp, womp, womp. But
Yeah.
you won't know. And one of the things I understand about when you're being tested, when there's metrics and expectations that haven't been communicated, you will fail. Period.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that you won't fail if those things haven't been communicated. And then sometimes it's just a matter of you didn't ask.
Yeah.
Some people are not proactive. They're just like, hey, we're going to pull off this event. It's going to be awesome. Well, sometimes they don't know. And so when you pull that out of them, you're putting the responsibility onto them to go back and say, hey, how do we make sure this is a success? How do we make sure this is a failure? What is the minimum metric we can hit that we would say, okay, this was good, you know, 10
Yeah.
signups, or 10 this, or did they bring a friend? Is there contesting? Do we collect new emails? If we get new email, like how many new emails do we need to get? Asking the questions that make it clear, okay, this is what we need to do. Because inherently, if you tell me that I've got to collect email addresses, that means, at one point I was managing an event space for one of our clients, their office, actually. They moved into a different office. And of course, commercial real estate, the lease is what, 3 to 5 years. And so they had,
Yes.
I think, like a year and a half left. I said, great, let's turn it into an event space. Great, did that. Everywhere you looked in that space, even in the windows when it was closed, were QR codes. Because I am not going to wait for you to. I don't trust consumers, and I am a consumer, and you're a consumer as well.
Yeah.
I don't trust consumers to say, oh, this was awesome. Let me go look it up. Let me figure out what it is. No, I need that moment in time. They're not going to do that. So we had QR
Thank you
codes
for saying that.
everywhere. When we did the stress test, because I actually wanted us to do a stress test on the space because I needed to see how many people could actually fit in there. Forget what the fire marshal says. Let me see what happens. And so we did a stress test, and I was like, okay, I know how many people can comfortably fit here, 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 here. Okay, I do understand. Okay, great. And so, it's the strategic mind always wins. It's
Yeah.
always strategy over struggle. If you're struggling in the space, if you're struggling in getting results, if you're struggling in getting clients, if you're struggling in keeping clients, it's more than likely because you're not strategic enough for the process to provide the desired outcomes for you and them.
Mic drop. Yes, everything you just said. Because even when I talk to people, I'm like, y'all give consumers way much more credit than they deserve. Like, even when they're like, oh, well, they'll see me on Instagram. No, they won't. Like, there are vendors that I intentionally am looking for at specific times of the year, but because they don't follow up with me, they don't do anything I don't remember who they are. Like, if we can't do that, why are we
Yeah.
expecting our customers to do that? So, like, you have to have a strategy. If you have someone's attention, you work hard to get someone's attention, to get them into a space. And I love that you said about the venues, because venues can learn from that. Like, if people are coming into a space because they're coming for someone's special event, they're coming for a conference, this, that, and other, like, get away so that you can start adding people to your email list so they can know what you're up to. They can get updates on your space. Like, for them to say, oh, I have to remember where I was a month, 2 months, 3 months ago. They're not. They're going to go to you. They're going to go to Google and find what is the closest venue. They're like, you have to take control
Mm-hmm.
of how you're marketing your business in front of each and every person.
Correct.
So I love that you shared all of that, because literally it's mic drop, because we have to be intentional. I think at the heart of strategy is intentionality.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to add this as well because I have a situation, right? I'm going to be transparent with your listeners. So, one of our lovely events ended with the one of the major sponsors owing me $8,000. They've owed me $8,000 for the last 19 years. I'll never see that money, but it's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale about making sure that your policies, your processes, and your protocols are in place, and advanced lesson, that you adhere to them. Had I adhered to what was in the agreement, I wouldn't have gotten through the event and then still had a sponsor with an outstanding balance. That's how that works. And so, it goes, and so that also goes back into the conversation around what the client wants, because not only do you want to know what they want, but you want to be able to codify that into an agreement. So they can't come back and say, well, we said we wanted 400. No, when we talked, we said two was the goal. Like, create an addendum in your agreements, right? I'm a huge proponent of paper. I'm a huge proponent of agreement. And make sure that everybody signs it. Okay, great. But create an addendum that says these are our desired outcomes and metrics. And make sure, don't just, I love the idea of doing business with a gentleman's handshake, that type of thing. But we live in the 21st century, and don't play in your own face. Do not.
Do not. Like, I
Don't
had
do it.
someone that told me, Jesse, well, my receipt should be, I was like, I wouldn't do that with my business. I'm like, you need to have contracts. Like, where are you protecting your business? Please don't have the assumption that
Absolutely.
everyone does business above ground or above the board. Don't
Right.
believe that everyone's
Yep.
going to respect what you do. Like, I have right now one client who's one has an invoice that's been due since January. I keep going back and forth. For some reason, they think that the check has been paid. I keep giving correspondence. I already said to myself, once it hits June, I'm no longer reaching out to them. I'm reaching out to corporate, because I can show the whole thread of communication. I can show that everything was
Exactly.
executed. I can show all of my correspondence. You can act as if I'm not
Exactly.
emailing you at this point. I don't care. But what I'm about to do is take it to corporate
Exactly.
and get them to take care of my payment.
Exactly. As you should. And that's the thing, there's inherently what comes with gifts and talents and all these lovely capabilities is the reality that you have to be a proper steward of them. And
Yes.
the only way to be a proper steward is to ensure that you are honored by way of being paid. Money separates the serious from the curious all day, every day, twice on Sunday. So if you're not taking the time to put the agreements in place and to enforce them, don't just let them sign the agreement like I did. And then, oh, because we were friends, oh, yeah. No, when you're doing business with friends, I think you need even more paper. But the fact of the matter is, people forget. Sometimes it's not even nefarious. It's not even malicious, right? It's just they forget. They talk to, a million people a day, and they thought they said 15, but you heard 50 because they sound a lot alike. And so that's why we need the paper. We need the protection. We need the protection so that it's very clear the expectations that we're being held to and the expectations we plan to deliver on.
I love that. And I think it's important too to have those as well with our vendors, because one of the things I always recommend for those
Yes.
that are on the organizer and design and you're working with vendors to help with bringing that together, everyone does not run their business the same way. And I learned that years ago. Like on time is relative. Some people think
Right.
on time means the event starts at 6 and I pulled up at 5:50. I am on time. No, like I've had that happen. So if you don't take the time to make sure you have one, you need to make sure that the vendors, and that's the vetting process. I think is so important when we're thinking about, okay, I want to start doing brand activations. I want to start going into this. You have to, what I became present to is that as an event organizer, my ability to make sound judgments are questioned or they're on the line. So if I choose to bring X, Y, and Z business into a location to execute something and they're neither, like they're not timely, they're not professional or something along the mixture of those, often what happens is that
Uh-huh.
they will look at the company and say, wow, that's crazy. But they look at me for choosing that company to come inside and work with them. So this is why it's important for us to make sure we have those clear communications and intentions, not only with our clients, but we also have to have that with our vendors and the people we're collaborating and partnering with. Because if you're someone that is a designer and you're like, man, this fired me up, I'm going to start pitching to brands to be on their boards, or I'm going to start aligning myself with PR agencies. If you align yourself, because you often hear why people don't like to work with other people, they say that people are, you can't trust them or they're not professional and X, Y, and Z. But the thing is that did you vet them? Did you take the time to find out the way you work align with how they run their business? And that is the core
Right.
of going into this vein or just growing in the a broad event industry is your decision making, your ability to tell people's character, not just the cool pictures, because there's a lot of people that do amazing things that have beautiful photos and they are
Mm-hmm.
a complete, absolute nightmare. So you want to be clear.
Absolutely. And I think what should go without saying, but I think we're just going to say it anyway, is that just because you like somebody doesn't mean that they're the professional for you. There are tons of people that I like, just love and adore them, but I will never, ever, ever, ever do business with them because I've learned through our personal connection that we are not aligned in our head and heart space.
Mm.
So that means the work of our hands might not work out well. So I'm just like, love you, mean it. But as far as us doing business together, that's never going to happen. Ever.
Yeah, and
Love
that's
you though.
value. But that's, I mean, but that's the honesty of it. Like I have someone that I've worked with. We no longer work together anymore, but I love seeing that he's doing amazing things in his life and his business and his talents and
Mhm.
skills. However, there were some life things that were happening where this person no longer appeared to me as someone that was reliable, and it wasn't on anything that they can control. They were having family matters that will just happen, and their focus shift. It's not for me to jeopardize my business because something in someone else's life has shifted. And I think it's important for us to understand, like, when should I not or when should I end a relationship or a partnership, and doing it in a way that hopefully, I mean, some people will still feel some sort of way depending on, how long that
Absolutely.
relationship or partnership existed. But ultimately, you have to do what is going to help your business still stay afloat and not tarnish your reputation. Because that was the biggest thing for me is that I didn't want it to be that now clients are like, but is this event still going to go on? Because they've had experiences where that person was either a no show or late. So it's super important to know that. So
Mhm.
with you being in the industry as long as you have, I would love to be able to know what are some things that you've seen change in the event organizing or the event production side?
I think just the what we're willing to do in the event space, in the name of a good event, what we're willing to do. And of course, I don't do events all the time, but just I think what I love is kind of like the integration of the digital, having the great things on site, and really a commitment to making great memories. Having we used to just have the step and repeat and then, go on. Now it's okay, well, maybe we'll do 360 photo booth, or maybe we'll do the photo frame, and just really make this thing an entire memory, where we can pull it up and we can post on social. I think social media really changed the way that we do things in real life. I think we think more strategically, as I think, at least I hope we do, as to how will this look on Instagram? How will this look on social media? What do we want them to do with this? Is there a particular hashtag? And I think, like I said, what we're willing to do and the lengths we're willing to go to. And I also feel like, an emergent trend really is collaboration. Really, really, I think those who really want to succeed understand that it doesn't happen in a vacuum and it doesn't happen single-handedly, and we talked about that earlier, but really collaborating with people. And the tee hee hee is you might be collaborating with somebody you just met on TikTok. You're not collaborating with someone down the street. You're not collaborating with someone you've known, 20 years. You're meeting people and catching the vibe and having all the conversations, and then using social media to actually build a network where you actually are now having events and other type of experiences together. And I think that's amazing.
I think so too. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about social media. There's the things I don't necessarily always care for, but I love the ability that it allows for us to meet people that we might not have normally crossed paths with, like you and myself. Like we probably would have never crossed paths if we didn't cross on threads. So that is the beautiful thing about it. So I love the tips that you've been able to give. But one of the things I'm curious about is what would you say to someone that might be nervous about hosting their first event, workshop, or retreat?
Well, nerves are fine. To doubt is human, but consider why you're nervous. Let that nervousness, that fear teach you. Why is it? Are you afraid somebody won't show up? Are you afraid that, your chef is not going to show up because they don't show up and you know this, but you chose them anyway? What is it? What is, as I always say, what is the fear trying to tell you or teach you? What is the anxiety trying to tell you or teach you? So that you can make a diligent, intentional plan that doesn't happen. But knowing that even the best laid plans, the best laid plans, 2 days before the event for All Star, I had a dream that people were coming in the doors and there was no music. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Now we had taken over an office building. It was 3 stories. We had a lower level with one DJ, VIP with another DJ. Do you know that actually happened? The event started and our first level DJ, I believe, was Cut Creator. He had run to his hotel room. Somebody opened the doors. I didn't tell them to open the doors, and there was no music, not a drop. Just, and I was like, my dream, people are like by the droves, people are coming in. And I'm like, and then I was just like, somebody was like, just get a speaker until he got back. And we worked it out. And I didn't, I didn't lose my mind. And nobody probably remembers that part but me. So I say that to anybody who is nervous about what could go wrong. Great. Put a prophylaxis on what could go wrong. And then realize there's about 108 more things that could go wrong. And then go out and have a great time. That's what you do. Easy breezy.
If that's not, I mean, and that's the part about why it's important to have the strategy, the processes, the procedures, because those things, they're things you can control and have in order. And there are things in events, which are the 108 other 9 things that can happen that are not aligned to the process. Like, so don't add it, don't make it more difficult and complex because we're out here on vibes and disarray. But you have to be organized because if you're not organized and you're in the event industry, you're making this way much more complicated and overwhelming than is actually necessary. Because I always say to people that I love how we're able to think on the fly and find solutions. And like, how about we try to control, like, we try to be on top of the things that are not those variables so that all we can do is be ready to actually react to the unexpected of, with the DJ. Or I even had it where someone got rushed to the hospital because they passed out, or things happen. Those are things you can't control.
They
But what
do.
do you like? But what can you do inside of your business so there's structure and order so that if those things do occur, that you are able to have some kind of backup plan, or just I think when you have the lightness of everything else, it allows for the creativity or the solution focus of what is going on now. It's like, but if everything is chaotic,
Mhm.
it's hard to find a good solution because most people just overreact and or just don't react the best, or just don't react at all, because it's adding on to the pile of the mayhem compared to you allowing a clear footing for you to actually walk into your event day to focus on just making that event great compared to everything else like bubbling. So that's super important.
Absolutely.
So, one of my last questions that I do have is, we've talked about mindset, we talked about teamwork, we talked about growing in our craft. I would like for you to share what's one mindset shift that separates those who create movements inside of the events that they're creating and those who just throw a party.
I honestly think it is being mindful of the outcomes, but also being acutely aware of the value that you bring to the event itself. Because if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, everything is, you're kind of at the mercy of everything, right? Everything going wrong, everything going right, everything. If you're unwilling to take your role as commander, keeper of all I survey, it's going to make it difficult for you to see beyond the what ifs. And like you said before, it just makes it more complicated. So, really seeing the value of what you bring to this event space, to this event, to its coordination, to its direction, et cetera, et cetera. And then knowing that you are curating, you're not just creating, you're curating a moment in time for your fellow humans. And then if you think like that, think about what the fellow humans need to do, the outcomes that you can create, the ambiance, the this, the that, the tactical things. But I think the main thing is seeing yourself as the commander, seeing yourself as the commander, the keeper of the vision, all of those things that will let you operate from a place of power versus a place of disempowerment.
So, what are the best ways for people to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Well, you can find me online at Stephanie D. McKenzie. D is in Denise. That's my whole government name. Don't ask the whole story. But you can find me everywhere that same handle, Stephanie D. McKenzie, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. So thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been so great.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. And today we were able to learn that events aren't just moments, they can really truly be pivotal in someone's growth and the goals in which they have with actually executing these events. So, Stephanie, I just want to thank you for sharing the importance of having strategy and intention, regardless if we're doing a small event or we're trying to do a massive blowout for the clients in which hire us. So, I hope those of you that have listened have enjoyed this, and comment and let me know what's been their favorite takeaway so that we are continuing to talk about how do we build a hustle free business.